Good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Afternoon, whatever it is. It's cold out, but we'll persevere. Today we have a lecture about intellectual property, and I think it's one of the more critical points of drug discovery that we tend to not really think about as academic scientists. So we have Holly Meadows here. She is Associate Director of the Harvard Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the Institute does. And I think that institute is your first point of contact if you want to maybe patent something, or you have questions about, is this something that will be patentable? What does that even mean? And I think that institute has really done a good job in the last few years from being, in the past it was probably a little bureaucratic, stodgy type of group. And so Kathy Nugent is the director, and her and Holly have really changed a lot of the people that work there, the mindset, and they have a beautiful new building in the Collette School of Business, really cool space, lots of glass, and you just walk in and you feel creative.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right. So for those of you online, we'll do the usual. So you're all muted, but I'll check the chat box at the end for questions. So
Thanks, Micah, for having me. This will be really informal, so you can stop me at any time, just kind of wave, get your hand up in the air, and you can ask me questions at any time. First couple of slides are going to kind of let you know who I am, not myself, but my role at the university and why and how I work in intellectual property here at the university. So the HIIE, as Micah said, this is what we do. We transfer discoveries from the laboratory to the market. This is really the main flow chart of what we work in. We work with IPD disclosures. We triage, literally meaning we evaluate how urgent there is a need to act on that intellectual property. Is it just a concept? Is it not going to be published for a while? Are you working with other people that we need to assess your rights versus their rights? Do we need to file something sooner rather than later, or is it patent eligible at all? And then we go through patent filing and maintenance or other intellectual property protections if needed to, and marketing and commercialization. So we're a 501c3, which means we are a nonprofit entity for the benefit of UAB. We are, Scott Swindle's here with me. He's an LA licensing associate in our office. We work for UAB, but our employer is actually an affiliate of UAB. And so all of our work is done with the intent of transferring technology that's made at UAB out into the public domain for the public good. So this is just some bullet points about IP. I'm not going to really read the slides. You all can read whatnot. But mainly when you think about IP, you're going to think about patents, copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets. Here at the university, we mainly work with those first three. Trade secrets is kind of something that's going to be almost against our mission. A university's mission is to disseminate knowledge. So although we have on very few occasions run into dealing with a trade secret, mainly in our office we're evaluating copyright, trademark, and patent. And when you're talking drug discovery, you're mainly playing in the patent realm, okay? So when you come to us with a discovery that has to do with a potential therapeutic or a diagnostic, we're mainly looking at patent protection there. So patent and trademarks are filed through the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Copyrights are protected at the library, the United States Library of Congress. So this is just examples. What can be patentable? It's interesting that we're talking about drug discovery today, but I will just say as an aside, medical devices are very much on trend, and in that realm you do get into some software. And software eligibility for patents is a very difficult analysis. It's different. It's difficult it's more difficult than the others, I should say. But these are just some examples of what we would consider intellectual property. Again, eligible for any of those different classes that we talked about before. So why is IP important? Well, it protects your intellectual asset from theft or misuse or exploitation by another person. It identifies the maker, the inventor, and patents especially, that they are quite literally a monopoly. They are a monopoly given to you for 20 years to make you sell that invention or to license out your rights as the inventor to others to make you sell, because there's this economic incentive to, to create and to protect. So copyright, I'm going to run through these really quickly. Copyright is original works of authorship, so think manuscripts, articles, works of art, books, movies, music. Trademark protection, that's symbols and words, pictures that go together that make you think of a good. So the McDonald's arches, the Walmart Starburst, the Starbucks mermaid, things like that. That is trademark protection. Trade secrets, again, we don't deal with these much here. I will tell you that we've had one during my tenure, which is 14 years at UAB, and it's the recipe for a sea urchin food that creates really quick, really juicy sea urchins. So you're not licensed, but the bar is high for how a trade secret is protected, because it is not disclosed as part of a patenting or trademark or copyright as the others are. They're disclosed in full. Patents are enabled so that you're sharing that knowledge. In exchange for sharing that information, you get the monopoly. Trade secrets are quite literally kept secret. So the bar is very, very high. So you've probably heard the stories of like the Coca-Cola recipe being a trade secret and only a certain number of people. As far as I know, that is true. That is how people protect their trade secrets, is you literally keep that secret. So our sea urchin recipe is locked up in the UAB General Counsel's office. Patents granted by the USPTO. This slide, I always mean to go back and change it, and I don't. But it should say just patents. And they're granted by the jurisdiction in which you've applied for them. There's not just U.S. patents. There's patents all over the world, different jurisdictions, and you are subject to that jurisdiction's laws and requirements for enablement and eligibility. But in general, the U.S. patents are filed at the USPTO. The types of patents are utility, design, and plant patents. Again, drug discovery, pretty much playing in the utility field. That's a novel composition, novel method of use, etc. So these are literally the statutory requirements for something to be patentable, okay? It has to be eligible subject matter, which means it has to be made by the hand of man. So you cannot patent a mathematical law. You cannot patent gravity. You cannot patent, it has to be something that's made. Useful is a pretty, almost anything I would venture to say can almost pass that usefulness test. Novel refers to that it's not been disclosed. It's not been in a publication. It's not been commercially available for over a certain period of time. Adequately described, again, that's the exchange for the monopoly, is that you're telling the U.S. Patent Office, and then after it's published, telling the world in the public domain how you do what you're doing. In exchange for that, you get this monopoly. So the hardest, I think, or what we see the most, at least in our work, objection that you can overcome to being patentable is this non-obviousness to one skilled in the art. So what that means is, so when you're applying for a patent and going through this delicate dance back and forth with the patent office or jurisdiction that you're working with, they are allowed to reject your patent on certain grounds, okay? And the non-obviousness grounds does not mean, it's different than the novel, where if you can't point to the fact that it's been used in public or that it's for sale. It's different than eligible subject matter, where you can point to the fact that it's not made by the hand of man, or it doesn't meet the requirements that have been set forth in case law to be patent eligible. Non-obviousness is really interesting because different references can be combined together, meaning a article, a manuscript can be combined with an existing or published patent. And other items in the public domain and such that if one skilled in the art could look at those references together and say, well, of course, if you knew this and this, you would know that you could get to this new invention, okay? So that one's a really hard one to overcome, and we deal with that a lot. It's a very, very normal objection to see coming out of the USPTO. So I kind of have said a lot of these things, except I didn't say that the term of a new patent is 20 years from the date on which the application is filed, okay? So that is your monopoly. That's the time you have to go out. That's your runway to go out and sell your patent and be the only one and exclude others from selling, which is the main part about a patent. So a patent keeps, it's not like you receive a patent and checks start coming in. You have to utilize your patent. You have to protect your patent and police your patent. You have to go out and look and see if other companies may be infringing it, and then you either offer a license or get a settlement with them for their infringement. But the main thing I will say in drug discovery is it's really hard. You know, these early innovations in drug discovery, they could be 20 years from going to market, right? You've got a long continuum. So in our office, we try really, really hard to hold off on publication as long as we can, because we want to keep that one box that was on the page before about novelty. We want to keep that as long as we can. However, we realize that runs headlong into you all that are in the research world, and you really need to publish. So we try to work really creatively and competently with you on whether or not everything needs to be disclosed in your publication. Everything needs to be put in a grant application, which can be considered a public disclosure once it's awarded if it's published. So yeah, we definitely have seen, I mean, it's a risk. It's a nice gamble you play, but we have definitely been on year 11, 12 of a patent life of the 20 years and had a biopharma company or a pharmaceutical company license for us, but they've got to look at their runway. How long is it going to take for them to go through trials, development, their screenings and whatnot, get it on market and get the bang for their buck? Yes.
So I have a question. For example, if you develop a drug for osteoporosis,
For another process, is that what you said? Osteoporosis. I'm sorry.
So if just the 2-3 years before expiration of the patent, and you find out this drug can be used to treat cancer. So can you extend the patent life of this drug?
Yes, I mean there's strategic ways to. It depends what has happened in that time, the 17 years. It depends what's been filed on that, and it depends. But if that same innovation has not been discovered by anyone else, you can strategically file to extend the life of the patent, but it will be for the cancer use. It won't be for the osteoporosis use. So patent prosecution, I referred to that earlier as the delicate dance. I always just kind of think of that. That's just kind of my own phrase that I've coined on that one. But patent prosecution, it sounds like a legal proceeding. I mean, I guess not, and technically it is, but it's not a go to court prosecution type thing. It's back and forth with the patent office, and it's the time that it takes for the criteria to have been met and approved before a patent is issued. So these numbers are in here. I mean, they're roundabout numbers, but this is from what we see in our office. U.S. patent, $30,000 to $50,000. Again, we're talking about in our life sciences area. And when you go to foreign patents, because foreign jurisdictions require annuities every year, meaning you just make a payment just to keep the patent pending in foreign jurisdictions, those expenses jump exponentially. So that is just FYI for you to know how much it costs for us. This is a deep dive on copyright. I'm not going to go deep dive on that because I don't think, and I'm not sure that y'all are interested, but I will say, so the reason software is so interesting is because software could be copyrighted. You could just rely on your copyright, or you can file a patent around certain software. But the law around software patentability has changed a lot. There was guidance that was put out earlier I think in February, about the current status of what constitutes a patentable software. But basically, we're still under some rulings from 2014. But before 2014, it was almost like every other Supreme Court cycle, software was going through a different test. So it's just something to think about. And I think in this day and age, almost every scientist is kind of crossing over both realms, and you at least know something about software. So I wanted to at least pause on this slide. One thing to note is, so copyright for your software is protecting, just the code. It's protecting what the code says. And there's some ways to do that. You can redact out certain, I think it's up to like 50 lines or maybe 50 lines per page. I'm not sure, but you can redact out such that you're not disclosing the entire code when you file with the Library of Congress. But it's still, you're protecting only the four corners of that code. So it would probably stand to reason that someone can just, reverse engineer and get around. They could probably get around to copyright pretty easily. Software protection, patent protection for software is different because you're really patenting the underlying method, the transformation that's happening there to that data that's being fed in to your software and what's happening. You're patenting that. And so that's why it's a hard test to overcome. But we're seeing this more and more, and when I go to national conferences, data and the use of data and the transformation of data is huge in healthcare. So who is an inventor? I always like to go through this because scientists, you all are a very cordial group when it comes to bestowing authorship to people, okay? Authorship does not equal inventorship. So you get to the end of a manuscript, you might have people who read through, did some edits, added some copy just to clarify your wording, helped with some of your footnotes. That is not making a conceptual contribution to the underlying invention that may be being disclosed there that you're having patented by my office. So we're really particular, and this is not an intent to leave people off, it's an intent to include people. So if you're a student and you're working with a faculty member and you made a conceptual contribution, i.e. when you read that paper and experiments are still going on, you're saying, you know what, this didn't work at this degree or this time length, let's try this differently, or let's add this step, and then that does work. You are an inventor. You have added a conceptual contribution, okay? So we talk about that a lot in our office. So at the beginning of things, people are usually really happy. Let's just turn in an IPD. I mean, maybe your department or chair follows that and you really want to turn in the IPD, but no one really cares until it gets time for us to license it. We've got a pharmaceutical company on the hook to talk to us, and all of a sudden, no one can agree on who's an inventor or how much you contributed to something. So I think it's just really important up front. I don't mean to discourage anyone at all. You can bestow authorship onto people. You cannot bestow inventorship. That's something we should always talk about. So again, this slide is more about where we sit in the innovation pipeline of Birmingham. So we're right here at early stage development. We have a commercialization accelerator for our students. We're trying to add a faculty accelerator on. That should be coming later in 2019. But that's where you're really trying to accelerate those technologies, particularly those that they have legs, they have a good potential. You've done your filing, but and it may be a platform technology. So it may be, in fact, most of them in our commercialization accelerator are probably looking at the startup route, but it may be that you just need that next push, that next something to get you to a development stage where something is licensable too. But then, and commercialize. We definitely in our office work with industry to license out. We create industry partnerships. Sometimes we will kind of coddle, Micah and I are working on one right now with a large pharmaceutical company, two, where we are sharing compounds. They are doing some confirmatory studies on what our inventor has published in Nature. So I mean, not too shabby, but an industry has to confirm that work. And then you may partner up. They may sponsor some research here to develop it a little further, or they may just take it all out. Carte blanche and develop in-house. But we definitely do that. And for the startup route, we help with early formation and growth. Birmingham is really moving towards a startup realm and wants to really invest not only with money but people and structure and startups. And that's definitely something that that UAB or the HIA is playing a role in. So this is our old website, which changed like 2 weeks ago, but basically the same thing applies. So right there in the middle, disclose an invention. So that's still on our website. That's what you would go to if you had something that you just wanted to talk to someone about. We do take cold calls in our office, and we do set up meetings anytime someone has something that they want to kind of get an opinion on. We get a lot of students that come to us and say, look, I'm working on this, but it's my idea, and I'm not using UAB resources, and I'm not working with a professor, and I don't get paid. Okay, well, we'll evaluate it and just say, yep, you're right, nothing. If you are doing one of those things, working with a researcher, getting paid, especially being paid by a grant, we need to know if you have an invention. And we're there to offer our services to you. But you disclose this invention, and that starts the process. Let me go back here. When you disclose an invention, it starts the process at the beginning. IP disclosure. You're assigned to someone in our office who does a little bit of diligence. They do a little bit of their own. I would call it art searching light. We're not doing a full patent search. We're not doing a freedom to operate analysis. We are simply looking for what's out there in the public domain, in publications, in patents, in other people's labs that we can figure out if you're truly novel or if we need to act on that. And then we go through the continuum that I've kind of discussed. So I'll show you again, this may be in it is our old IP disclosure form. I know you can't read this, but I will tell you basically what we're looking for. We're looking for a title. That's your choice, but we don't really want anything creative. We want something pretty specific, pretty layman terms, novel target for osteoporosis. Then we ask what realm it's in, those little boxes up top, or therapeutic, software, vaccine, diagnostic, assay, method of treatment, device, new composition of matter, or other. We do a lot with research tools in our office. So mouse lines that have value, antibodies, cell lines that have value for other academic institutions or for industry. We can sell those out. For research purposes, and we call them research tools. We don't always patent our research tools. Scott could answer if there's any research tools questions. I will defer to Scott because I'm not a life scientist. So, and then we're just asking, again, some of the things that I kind of sprinkled in here. Who did you work with? Did you only work with UAB people? Did you work with students? Did you work with people at Duke? Did you work with people in a company? What materials did you use? Did you use your own materials, or did you have an MTA and get stuff in from MClone, or did you buy stuff, or did you get something in from another university? What funds did you use? UAB only, or did you use funds from a grant or from an industry partner? We have to know all those things because, again, when those grants are happening up in the administration building, those things have contractual obligations in them to report inventions back. So we do that for you. We help you out there. If you say, yeah, I had a colleague at Wake Forest and she contributed just as much as I did, that's great. Universities work every day on putting together what we call interinstitutional agreements, and that's just what it says. Between us two institutions, how are we going to govern this? Does UAB have more acquaintances or colleagues in the field of this drug or therapeutic, or does Wake? So that institution would be the lead. Who made it? Who really made it more? I mean, is it a 50-50? Is it a 20-80? And then how are we going to share revenues? Are we going to do it based on invention, or are we going to say, hey, you've got a long road to hoe here, so you lead party, you're going to be able to take a little bit off the top for your administrative expenses. So those kind of things happen. That's why we ask these things. And then lastly, that all important, who are the inventors? I mean, that also rolls into who did you work with, whose materials did you use? Who did you work with? I mean, who are the inventors here? Was it just you? Was it you and 3 other people at UAB? And so the way this works is you disclose everyone you've worked with. You don't have to go get the signatures of the people not at UAB. But between you all at UAB, we ask you to assign the distribution of how the invention was made. That can get really sticky if we don't do it again up front, because up front everybody's collegial, everybody's happy, we made an invention. But then, it gets close to licensing and it's all of a sudden like, I wasn't 10%, I was 90%. So we really, really, really try to rely on you all and stay out of that. We always really try to push it off on you. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes we have to get other people involved, deans, chairs, whatever. But we try not to. We try to say, hey, just agree to something and get it back to us. So our website looks a little different, but the disclose an invention thing is there. Even if you just want to look at it, you can click on it and you can just print it. You don't have to disclose anything. But in a nutshell, that's how we work. And we do a lot. I would say between 70 and 80% of our stuff that's disclosed here on campus comes from life sciences, school of medicine. Drug discovery is a big deal. The ADDA, which Micah is the director of, that is a program that some of more of our progressed drug discovery, patentable inventions have gone into that program. It's been wonderful for us. It's been able to get stuff moved, and so that's the two projects we're working on now, or with ADDA. So that, I think I can entertain questions.